of the theme and variation form. Starting with the 6-measure introduction, Bartók immediately claims the religious pastoral topic by expressing the ringing of church bells, commonly found in the pastoral topic. A pedal point, as displayed in example 1, occurs when the open fifth combines with a major second, making the trichord 0-2-5. In the left hand, Bartók creates the illusion of the larger bells ringing with an overtones, whereas the right-hand single note seems to resemble a cantor's reciting tone, often found in psalmody. Bartók starts with 4 tetrachords that anticipate the other sections. The chords consist of the following: a 0-1-5-7, 0-1-4-6, 0-1-4-8, and yet another 0-1-4-8. For those of you who just finished Theory 4, you know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. The combination of these chords relates to the culminating set of 0-1-2-4-5-6-7-8-9. Which creates actually a series of major triads: 0-4-7, 1-5-8, and 2-6-9. This cell set is the basis for the beginnings of the theme and each of the variations. In spacing the chords so openly, Bartók appears to refer to a chorale-like sound. By measure 22, the melody becomes much more chromatic, going to 0-1-2-3, creating tension that leads into the following section. The second variation, in measure 24, breaks up the chords in order to allow for a whole tone, descending progression that simply transposes the same sentence, going from E flat to D flat to A, which is a 0-2-7 set. At this time, please refer to example 4A. and the E flat, while the tenor voice ascends by step. Due to the lyricism of the section, one could semiotically interpret this as a cantor singing with the chorus, while the tenors act in counterpoint to the upper voices. The dynamics of the section lead one to the religious frenzy of measure 42, as if leading the congregation to a sense of what Robert Hutton calls spiritual abnegation. By allowing the tension to increase via page-long crescendo, Bartók takes the ensuing burden and releases it suddenly by writing in a subito piano, as seen in example 4b. Examples for the third movement. Bartók finishes the piece with a celebratory movement, allegro molto, which relays the pastoral trope in terms of the pre-moral innocence of sexual freedom, a contrast to the religious nature of the second movement. When describing this type of pastoral trope, Manel writes, "Singing and making music, then, are amoral or pre-moral activities. They arise from a freedom from responsibility, but they lead to melancholy and despair, because the lyric world in which they flourish has been lost." Like in Stravinsky's neoclassical ballet, The Rite of Spring, Bartók creates drama through an evocation of pagan sensuality by alluding to some form of mating ritual through ceaseless ostinato rhythms. Referring to a learned style, Martin Rabosch seems to infer that Bartók looks to the past in order to express his idyllic beliefs on whatever level. In the final movement, Bartók expresses this by drawing upon the Italian rondo form of the Baroque era. This rondo form also relates to the concepts of cycles in nature. Per Monell, since nothing changes in the pastoral world, time is not experienced as a historical or developing process. Only the cycles of the seasons and hours of day and night are markers of time, which thus repeats itself constantly. The repetitive nature of the rondo form marks the organic chronological passing of ideas. The original dance-like theme employs a dactylic rhythmic grouping, which consists of combining long, short metric beat in the same set. So Bartók uses the Bulgarian peasant rhythm 3 plus 2 plus 2. So you were going da, da, da throughout the movement to accomplish the feel of a folk dance. By employing this rustic rhythmic reference, Bartók connects the work to pastoralism. If you look at example 1, in the initial antecedent phrase, measures 1 and 2 of the final movement, you will see that Bartók uses the dactylic grouping in the first 2 measures. On the other hand, in measures 5 to 8, as shown in example 2, the consequent phrase repeats the Bulgarian rhythm twice to conclude 3 shows how Bartók deliberately weaves rhythmic groupings over the bar line, such as in measures 182 to 189, thereby expressing an overarching idea that has stressed pulses, creating an organic means of grouping. The most common of which are 5/16 in the 2+3 combination, 7/16 in the 2+2+3 or 3+2+2 combination, 9/16 in the 2+2+3 or 3+2+2 combinations, 9/16 in the 2+2+2+3 or 2+3+2+2 groupings, and 11/16 in the 2+2+3+2+2 grouping. Go ahead, say that one 5 times fast. Despite the previous quote, the meter does not necessarily need to be 16 note. It could be represented by some other beat duration as well. The combination of smaller meters could result in a hypermeter that is indeed 5/8 or 8/8, like in measures 183 to 184, where the treble clef has a 3+3+2 scenario. To vary the theme, Bartók employs assorted techniques. One such application is canonic writing. By overlapping ideas, Bartók effectively intensifies the drama while hearkening to a popular learning technique from the Baroque era. In measures 29 to 34, as seen in example 4, he overlaps a 6-note figure between the two hands, creating an inverse canon. Ostinato gesture in the bass to create a uniquely Hungarian trope that combines the verbumbush with a more traditional folk music characteristic. According to Petto, gypsy verbumbush musicians used to create countless variations on a basic melody. The initial theme in the first 2 measures consists of 3 repeated notes, F sharp, followed by an ascending major second, going to the E, going to a minor third on the C sharp, and another major second on the B. This is also known as a member of the set class 0257. In measures 143 to 144, one finds 3 repeated C sharps, but followed by a major second, the B, a minor third going to the G sharp, and a major second ending on the F sharp, thereby transposing the 0257 set class. Bartók creates a variation of the main theme, much as a verbumbush musician might have done in his improvisation. This is very similar to a typical start of a verbumbush dance music movement as presented in example 5B. Please take a look at the rounded rectangle. That might have been played in that manner. A favorite compositional technique of Bartók, the ostinato impels certain sections and figures prominently in the semiotic interpretation to this movement as a pastoral trope. The idea of rotations in nature can also be expressed in rhythm. Recall that Bartók describes a characteristic of the pastoral trope, the pastoral topic, as perpetuum mobile, manifest in ostinato or motoric movement. In measures 49 to 73, see example 6 for passage fragment. The repeating figure in the left hand, a set of 2 major seconds an octave apart, which results in the lowest note being a compound second, a major 9. Below the highest, acts as a steady drum beat to the Bulgarian rhythm in the right hand. Likewise, in example 7, measures 227 to 246, he uses an enriched or built-in chord, built on the 5th scale degree of E, as an ostinato in the section. This repeatedly rolled chord consists of the elements of the octatonic hexachord B, C sharp, D, E, G, A, B. The F and G sharp are implied. According to Hatton, one of the primary characteristics of the pastoral trope is the use of the 5th scale degree as a pedal chord. In fact, Bartók creates an orgiastic frenzy in the coda, measures 265 to 281, by maintaining driving 8th notes throughout, despite changing his quinsal harmonies. Example 8 provides the lead-in fragment to the coda. In examples 6 and 7, the melody exhibits several of the pastoral traits laid forth by Manel. Not only is the melodic range limited, not being much more than a fifth, the melody appears to move in a more stepwise manner, employing skips very rarely. These qualities not only appear in the aforementioned examples, but indeed function throughout the movement. Bartók simply transposes the 5-note range melodies. The third movement seems to express the pastoral aspect of sexual freedom. So let me play a little bit of example 9. Much like Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which premiered in 1913, Bartók exploits the ostinato throughout the movement in a similar manner, as a narrative guide, to express a state of innocence. In combination with dynamics, the repetitive nature of the ostinato increases tension and excitement within the movement. Also, Bartók employs the typical melodic characteristics of the pastoral trope. By doing so, he marks the religious nature of the second movement with the pre-moral, innocent nature of the third movement. So, in conclusion, within the piano sonata, Béla Bartók wields the power to initiate cultural reference, narrative, emotional drama, form, and metrical multiplicity. Though Bartók seems to allow for the opportunity to listen to the music as either absolute or programmatic music, a semiotic interpretation yields itself to a military trope for the initial movement, and 2 unique forms of the pastoral trope in the other 2 movements, while the second movement delves into the sacred nature of the pastoral trope. The third movement reveals the pastoral aspects of time and nature as well as innocence. Yet, Bartók still further overlays a distinctively Hungarian trope that converges the verbumphos improvisational style of the gypsies with the traditions of Hungarian peasant folk music. Throughout this work, without quoting any particular song of either convention, Bartók implies the style by the manner in which he superimposes and juxtaposes his folk-based rhythms with gypsy musical mannerisms. He creates a nationalistic trope that works in conjunction with the military and pastoral tropes described by Manel, Hatton, Agalu, and others. In essence, Bartók creates an original trope that aligns nationalistic traditions with the pastoral and military topics of classical and romantic music. Thank you. Are there any questions? Yes?
Does he ever employ any other kinds of scales, or is it all just set class?
Any scale can be interpreted as a set class of some sort. So he does use different sorts of scales. He does use a regular octatonic. He does look at pentatonic. He looks at various tonalities.